On a seemingly ordinary flight from Paris to Burkina Faso, Air France Flight 526 turned into an extraordinary tale of courage, resilience, and human connection. Aboard the plane were 160 passengers, among them Ibrahim Traoré, the transitional leader of Burkina Faso, traveling incognito. Unbeknownst to everyone, this journey would become one of the most defining moments in modern African history, when 4 hijackers stormed the cabin demanding $50 million and the release of imprisoned freedom fighters. Chaos erupted. But what happened next defied every expectation. Instead of panic or violence, Traoré stepped forward as an unlikely negotiator, transforming fear into hope and extremism into empathy. How did he manage to turn a terrifying ordeal into a lesson on humanity? What secrets lay beneath his calm exterior, and how did his actions inspire millions around the world? Let's dive into this gripping story that proves true power lies not in force, but in compassion. The hum of engines filled the cabin as Air France Flight 526 cruised smoothly at 37,000 feet over the vast expanse of the Sahara Desert. Passengers settled into their routines, some reading books, others chatting softly or scrolling through phones. Among them sat Ibrahim Traoré, dressed casually in jeans and a simple shirt, blending seamlessly with the crowd. He had chosen anonymity for this trip, wanting no fanfare as he returned home to Burkina Faso after weeks of diplomatic meetings in Paris. Ibrahim glanced out the window, his mind wandering to the challenges awaiting him back in Ouagadougou. As transitional leader, he carried the weight of a nation yearning for stability and progress. Yet for now, he allowed himself a rare moment of peace, watching clouds drift lazily past the window. Suddenly, shouts shattered the tranquility. 4 masked men stormed down the aisles wielding crude weapons, knives duct taped to sticks and makeshift clubs. Panic erupted instantly. A woman screamed, children began to cry. Passengers scrambled toward the rear of the plane, instinctively seeking safety. One elderly man collapsed into his seat, clutching his chest, while another passenger accidentally knocked over a tray table, sending drinks spilling onto the floor. Ibrahim remained seated, his eyes scanning the hijackers' movements. They moved with determination but lacked precision, a sign of inexperience. Their leader, a wiry man with piercing eyes, grabbed the intercom system. "Listen carefully," he barked, his voice trembling slightly beneath its bravado. "We demand $50 million and the release of our imprisoned comrades. Do not resist us." The other 3 hijackers spread out, herding passengers toward the back of the plane. Chaos reigned as people huddled together, some sobbing uncontrollably, others frozen in shock. But Ibrahim stayed calm, observing every detail. He noticed how one hijacker hesitated when confronted by a crying child, lowering his weapon momentarily. Another seemed unsure where to stand, fidgeting nervously. As the initial frenzy subsided, Ibrahim leaned closer to a fellow passenger beside him, a young mother cradling her toddler. "They're desperate," he whispered, his tone steady and reassuring. "But they're not ruthless. There's room for negotiation here." His words caught the attention of William, the apparent leader, who was pacing the aisle. For a brief moment, their eyes met. Something about Ibrahim's composed demeanor intrigued William. Was this man just another frightened passenger or something more? William paused near Ibrahim, studying him intently. Did he recognize the quiet confidence that radiated from this unassuming traveler? Or was it merely curiosity driving his gaze? Moments later, one of the hijackers accidentally dropped his makeshift weapon, causing a ripple of panic among the passengers. Instead of escalating tension, Ibrahim calmly picked it up and handed it back to the man, earning a wary nod from William. This small act planted a seed of trust between them, though neither realized it yet. Just as things began to settle, the pilot's voice crackled over the intercom. "Attention everyone, we have critically low fuel levels. We need to land soon." Where could they possibly go? And who held the real power now? The announcement about critically low fuel levels sent a fresh wave of fear coursing through the cabin. Passengers exchanged panicked glances, their earlier attempts at calming down, crumbling under the weight of this new threat. Even the hijackers seemed rattled, exchanging hurried whispers as they tried to process the gravity of the situation. William, the leader, clenched his jaw, visibly torn between maintaining control and grappling with the reality that time was running out. Amidst the chaos, Ibrahim Traoré remained eerily composed. His calm demeanor had already caught William's attention, and now, sensing an opportunity, he stood up slowly, raising his hands in a gesture of peace. "If we don't act quickly," Ibrahim said, his voice steady but firm, "we risk losing far more than just our demands." William turned to face him, suspicion flickering in his eyes. "What do you know about flying a plane?" he snapped, his tone laced with both skepticism and desperation. "I know enough to help us buy time," Ibrahim replied evenly. "But I need your trust and access to the cockpit." For a moment, silence hung heavy in the air. The other passengers watched nervously, unsure whether this bold move would escalate the danger or offer a lifeline. Finally, after what felt like an eternity, William nodded curtly. "Fine, but one wrong move." He didn't finish the sentence, instead gesturing for Ibrahim to follow him toward the front of the plane. Inside the cramped cockpit, tension crackled like static electricity. The pilots sat rigidly, their faces pale with stress. One of them glanced at Ibrahim briefly before returning his focus to the instruments. Ibrahim studied the navigation map displayed on the screen, his mind racing. "We can't land in French-controlled airspace. They'll intervene immediately," he explained. "Niger is neutral ground. It buys us time without provoking international forces." The suggestion hung in the air, met with hesitant nods from the pilots. William hesitated, clearly torn. "How do we know they won't betray us there?" he demanded. "They won't," Ibrahim assured him, though his own certainty wavered slightly. "Not if we play this smart. Let me film a video showing everyone unharmed, children smiling, elderly waving. It will reassure the world and de-escalate tensions." William considered this for a long moment before finally agreeing. Back in the cabin, Ibrahim took charge, moving among the frightened passengers with quiet authority. To a sobbing mother holding her toddler close, he knelt down and spoke softly. "Your little one has such a beautiful smile," he said, gently coaxing laughter from the child. Nearby, a young couple clung to each other, tears streaming down their faces. Ibrahim placed a reassuring hand on the man's shoulder. "Fear feeds despair," he murmured. "Hope fuels survival." His words resonated deeply, offering a fragile sense of calm amidst the storm. Yet, not everyone was convinced. One of the hijackers, Daniel, a burly man with a haunted look in his eyes, watched Ibrahim intently as he interacted with the passengers. There was something unsettling about how effortlessly this stranger commanded respect, even in such dire circumstances. As Ibrahim soothed a crying elderly woman, Daniel stepped closer, his expression unreadable. "Why are you doing this?" he asked abruptly, his voice tinged with both anger and curiosity. During the filming of the video, Daniel refused to appear on camera, insisting he stay out of view. When Ibrahim pressed him subtly, asking if he had family waiting for him back home, Daniel froze, his facade cracking ever so slightly. Without another word, he turned and walked away, leaving Ibrahim to wonder what secrets lay buried beneath the surface. With the plane now circling Niger airspace, military jets appeared on the horizon, their sleek forms cutting through the sky like predators stalking prey. Would negotiations collapse under the pressure, or reveal unexpected allies? The sight of military jets flanking the aircraft sent a fresh ripple of terror through the cabin. Passengers pressed their faces against the windows, watching the sleek fighters maneuver with precision. Some whispered prayers under their breath, others clutched each other tightly, bracing for the worst. Even the hijackers exchanged uneasy glances, their earlier bravado faltering in the face of such overwhelming force. Inside the cockpit, tension crackled like sparks in dry tinder. The pilots exchanged terse words, their hands trembling slightly as they adjusted controls. William paced anxiously, his weapon gripped tightly, while Ibrahim Traoré stood calmly beside him, studying the radar display. "They're not here to attack," he said quietly, his voice cutting through the rising panic. "They're here to monitor, to ensure no one gets hurt." William spun around, his eyes blazing. "How can you be so sure?" he demanded, his voice trembling between anger and fear. "Because violence isn't their goal, not yet," Ibrahim replied evenly. "If we stay calm and keep communicating, we buy ourselves more time." His steady gaze seemed to anchor William momentarily, who nodded grudgingly before stepping back to let Ibrahim take the lead. Back in the cabin, emotions ran high. A teenage girl sat hunched in her seat, tears streaming down her cheeks as she clutched a necklace, a keepsake from her mother. Sensing her distress, Ibrahim knelt beside her, offering a gentle smile. "Courage isn't the absence of fear," he said softly. "It's facing it head on. You're stronger than you think." Her sobs quieted slightly, and she managed a weak nod. Nearby, an elderly man struggled to catch his breath, his face pale and clammy. Ibrahim quickly retrieved a bottle of water from an overhead compartment, helping the man sip slowly. "You've seen worse days, haven't you?" he asked kindly. The man gave a faint chuckle, nodding. "Yes, but none at 37,000 feet, he rasped, eliciting a small laugh from those within earshot. Amidst these moments of connection, Daniel, the burly hijacker who had avoided the camera earlier, remained distant, his movements stiff and deliberate. Yet, there was something different about him now. As Ibrahim moved through the cabin, Daniel followed his every move, his expression unreadable. Finally, unable to contain his curiosity any longer, Daniel approached Ibrahim, his voice low and urgent. "Why do you care?" he demanded, his tone sharp but laced with vulnerability. "Why are you helping us when you could just wait this out?" Ibrahim paused, meeting Daniel's gaze squarely. "Because I've seen what hate does to people," he said simply. "It destroys everything, and leaves nothing behind but emptiness. I believe there's still hope for all of us, no matter how far we've strayed." Daniel faltered, visibly shaken by the response. For a moment it seemed as though he might say something more, but instead he turned abruptly and walked away, leaving Ibrahim to wonder if his words had struck a chord. Outside the plane, news helicopters captured dramatic footage of the circling aircraft, broadcasting live to millions worldwide. Viewers tuned in eagerly, wondering, who was the mysterious man calming everyone inside? And what secrets lay hidden beneath his composed exterior? Just as passengers began to settle into a fragile sense of calm, a sudden technical glitch caused the plane to lose altitude briefly. Screams erupted once again, and chaos threatened to spiral out of control. But Ibrahim sprang into action, raising, his voice above the din. "Stay calm. We're safe." His unwavering presence steadied nerves, proving himself indispensable in the crisis. As the plane stabilized and prepared to descend toward Ouagadougou, William revealed his ultimate demand: safe passage to Burkina Faso. Could Ibrahim convince him otherwise and prevent further bloodshed? The plane descended steadily, its wheels kissing the tarmac of Ouagadougou's small airport with a soft thud. Outside, armed forces surrounded the aircraft, their vehicles forming a tight perimeter. The sight of soldiers in combat gear wielding automatic rifles sent a fresh wave of fear coursing through the passengers. Some clutched each other tightly, while others whispered prayers under their breath. Yet amidst the palpable tension, Ibrahim Traoré stood tall, his presence radiating an almost magnetic calm. William, the hijacker in charge, paced anxiously near the cockpit door, his weapon gripped tightly as he peered out the window at the scene below. "This is it," he muttered, more to himself than anyone else. "If they betray us..." He didn't finish the sentence, his voice trailing off into uncertainty. Ibrahim approached him, his tone measured but firm. "Now is your chance to choose peace over destruction," he said. "Let me mediate. I guarantee your safety." William hesitated, his eyes flickering between Ibrahim and the chaos unfolding outside. Finally, after what felt like an eternity, he nodded reluctantly. As the engines powered down and the cabin fell silent, Ibrahim turned to address the passengers one last time. "Stay calm," he urged softly. "We're almost there." His words carried weight, offering reassurance where panic threatened to take hold. Slowly, he stepped toward the exit, pausing briefly to glance back at Daniel, the burly hijacker whose resolve seemed to waver ever so slightly. For a fleeting moment, their eyes met, and Daniel gave a barely perceptible nod. Stepping off the plane into the blinding sunlight, Ibrahim removed his cap, revealing his identity for the first time. A collective gasp rippled through the crowd of reporters and onlookers gathered beyond the barricades. "I am Ibrahim Traoré," he announced, his voice steady and commanding. "Surrender peacefully. I promise justice will be fair." Inside the plane, shock rippled through the hijackers. William lowered his weapon first, followed by the others, their faces etched with resignation. One by one, they filed out of the aircraft, hands raised high, surrendering not just to the authorities but also to the hope that had been planted within them during those tense hours in the air. As relieved passengers disembarked, a young boy broke free from the line and ran, up to Ibrahim clutching a crumpled piece of paper. "Thank you for saving us," he whispered, pressing the drawing into Ibrahim's hand, a simple sketch of the plane mid-flight, surrounded by smiling faces. Back in custody, Daniel requested a private meeting with Ibrahim, hinting at unfinished business between them. When they finally sat down together in a quiet room later that evening, Daniel confessed something unexpected. He had once dreamed of becoming a teacher, only to have his life derailed by poverty and desperation. Moved by his story, Ibrahim vowed to help rehabilitate him. "Change starts with understanding," Ibrahim told reporters afterward, refusing to elaborate further, but leaving the world curious about what truly transpired behind closed doors. Reporters swarmed Ouagadougou, eager for answers. What would Traoré say during his upcoming press conference? And how would the world react to the lessons learned from this harrowing ordeal? The press conference took place in a modest hall at Ouagadougou's city center, yet it drew attention from across the globe. Journalists packed the room, their cameras flashing like strobe lights as Ibrahim Traoré stepped onto the stage. Dressed simply in a dark suit and tie, he exuded humility, his calm demeanor belying the gravity of the events that had unfolded just days earlier. The world watched intently, eager to hear how this man, once an anonymous passenger on a hijacked flight, had transformed chaos into hope. "True power lies not in palaces or armies," Ibrahim began, his voice resonating with quiet authority. "It lies in the hearts of the people, in our ability to choose empathy over fear, dialogue over violence." His words struck a chord, sparking murmurs of agreement among the reporters present. He recounted moments from the hijacking, the initial panic, the fragile negotiations, and the eventual surrender, not as acts of heroism but as lessons in humanity. "We are stronger united than divided," he declared, his gaze sweeping across the audience. "And when we listen to one another, even in the darkest times, we find light." Behind the scenes, however, Ibrahim's work was far from over. That evening, he met privately with Daniel, the burly hijacker whose life had been upended by desperation. Sitting across from him in a small, dimly lit room, Ibrahim listened intently as Daniel poured out his story, a tale of poverty, missed opportunities, and dreams crushed under the weight of circumstance. By the end of their conversation, tears glistened in Daniel's eyes. "I never wanted any of this," he admitted hoarsely. I didn't know what else to do." Moved by Daniel's vulnerability, Ibrahim made a promise to advocate for his rehabilitation and ensure he received the support needed to rebuild his life. "No one is beyond redemption," Ibrahim told reporters later, though he refrained from revealing specifics about their meeting. "Change begins when we understand each other's pain and offer a way forward." As Ibrahim left the stage, after the press conference, a young boy broke through the crowd, clutching a drawing of the plane mid-flight surrounded by smiling faces. "Thank you for saving us," the boy whispered, handing it to him. For a moment, Ibrahim stood frozen, overwhelmed by the simplicity and sincerity of the gesture. Days later, Leaked documents revealed that foreign powers had planned to intervene militarily before Ibrahim's intervention. His diplomacy not only saved countless lives but also averted a potential international crisis. Reporters scrambled to uncover more details, fueling global debates about leadership, empathy, and conflict resolution. In closing remarks during the press conference, Ibrahim hinted at upcoming reforms aimed at preventing future crises. Burkina Faso must stand as a symbol of resilience and wisdom, he said cryptically. But change requires all of us to act together. What changes awaited Burkina Faso, and how would they shape its future? Months passed, and the world watched as Burkina Faso began to transform under Ibrahim Traoré's leadership. The hijacking had been more than just a harrowing ordeal. It became a catalyst for change, sparking a national conversation about unity, compassion, and the power of dialogue. Inspired by the events aboard Air France Flight 526, Ibrahim launched a series of initiatives aimed at fostering understanding and preventing future conflicts. These weren't grand gestures or flashy programs. They were rooted in simple yet profound ideas: education, community building, and open communication. One of his first acts was establishing the Ouagadougou Peace Initiative, a program designed to provide education and vocational training for marginalized youth. Daniel, the former hijacker who had once dreamed of becoming a teacher, became one of its earliest participants. Through counseling and mentorship, he slowly rebuilt his life, eventually earning certification to teach primary school children. On the day he stood before his first class, tears welled in his eyes as he looked out at the eager faces staring back at him. "This is my second chance," he told Ibrahim later, "and I owe it all to you." But the changes didn't stop there. Ibrahim also spearheaded reforms within Burkina Faso's justice system, advocating for rehabilitation over punishment. Prisons introduced educational workshops and psychological support for inmates, focusing on reintegrating them into society, rather than isolating them further. Critics initially dismissed these efforts as naive, but the results spoke for themselves. Recidivism rates dropped significantly, and communities reported improved safety and trust. Late one evening, as Ibrahim sat alone in his office reflecting on the past year, he picked up the drawing the young boy had given him after the press conference. The plane mid-flight surrounded by smiling faces. It had become a symbol of hope, pinned to the wall beside his desk. He smiled faintly, remembering the boy's words, "Thank you for saving us." That moment reminded him why he had chosen this path, to remind people that even in their darkest hours, humanity could shine through. "That day taught me we're stronger united than divided," he mused aloud, speaking almost to himself. "When we choose empathy, we create ripples of change that extend far beyond what we can see." The legacy of the hijacking reached far beyond Burkina Faso's borders. Around the world, leaders and citizens alike drew inspiration from Ibrahim's actions. Universities invited him to speak about conflict resolution, while international organizations sought his advice on de-escalation strategies. His story became a beacon of hope, a testament to the enduring power of compassion and understanding. As time went on, the memory of Air France Flight 526 faded from headlines, but its lessons remained etched in history. In Ouagadougou, a monument was erected near the airport, a sleek sculpture depicting hands reaching skyward, symbolizing resilience and unity. Engraved at its base were Ibrahim's words, "True power lies not in palaces, but in the hearts of the people." On the anniversary of the hijacking, reporters gathered once again to ask Ibrahim how he remained so calm during those terrifying hours. Smiling faintly, he replied, "Fear is natural, but courage is a choice. That day I chose to believe in the goodness of others, and in our shared humanity." Among the attendees at the anniversary ceremony was Daniel, now dressed in a suit and tie, standing tall beside Ibrahim. When asked by a journalist if he regretted his actions, Daniel shook his head firmly. "Regret won't change the past," he said, "but forgiveness can shape the future." As the sun set over Ouagadougou, casting golden light across the city, Ibrahim stood quietly by the monument, watching families gather to pay their respects. Children played nearby, laughter filling the air. For a moment he allowed himself to feel pride, not for what he had accomplished, but for what they had achieved together. In that instant, he knew. True leadership wasn't about wielding power. It was about empowering others. If this story inspired you, please like, comment, subscribe, and share it with others. Let's spread messages of hope, resilience, and unity, one story at a time.